Good day and welcome again to this Bible study series on the Ten Commandments from Meriden Church in Western Australia. You can follow our videos and other news on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page. Simply look for Meriden Church. So today we come to the fifth commandment. Honor your father and mother so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. Let me start with a story. One day, a rabbi was seated next to an atheist in an aeroplane. I know it sounds like the beginning of a bad joke, but it's a good story. Every few minutes, one of the rabbi's children or grandchildren would come to his seat to see if he needed anything, food, drink, something to read. They'd just come and check on him. And the atheist commented, "The respect your children and grandchildren show you is wonderful. Mine don't show me that respect." "Well, think about it," the rabbi said. "To my children and grandchildren, I am one step closer to God, who created the Hebrews, the God who spoke to us at Sinai. To yours, you are merely one step closer to the apes." That story, in a not-so-subtle way, communicates an important message. Being the people of God has a profound effect on how we treat other people, especially those who are closest to us. And it stands in stark contrast to the bumper sticker that says, "Be nice to your children, because one day they'll choose your old age home." Or the one that reads, "Honor your father and mother, they haven't made their will yet." The fifth commandment is unique for several reasons. It is one of only two positively stated commands. Last week we talked about the other, remember the Sabbath day. And it is the only command that comes with a promise that you may live a long and happy life. And it stands in an important location in the list of the commandments. The fifth commandment is a transitional command. The first four addressed how human beings are to relate to God. The last six address how human beings are to relate to each other. And just as the first command is foundational for the other nine, so the fifth command serves as a basis for the last six. Its placement in the list suggests that the home is the primary source of values, ethics, and morality. And just as a failure to honor God with exclusive allegiance keeps us from obeying the other commands, so a failure to honor our parents results in an inability to honor any other human being. In other words, if we don't show respect and love to our families, we will struggle to show honor and compassion to our friends, to our neighbors, and to strangers. There were three reasons that this command was needed. First, remember that the ones who were addressed by God through Moses at Mount Sinai had just been released from 400 years of slavery. They had lived in a culture that devalued age, and as you got older, it was harder to work, and if you could not work, you were worthless. We do the same thing today. It's called early retirement. Second, they lacked the social structure that would provide for people in need. That's why there are so many commands about how they were to provide for the poor and even for strangers who were living in the land. There were no retirement plans or superannuation funds, so older people had to rely on their children when they could no longer care for themselves. Now, God knows that we are inherently selfish. That's why the New Testament is filled with commands to love one another, to care for one another, to give preference to one another, to look out for the good in one another. And then third, it is the first command with a promise. God says that those of us who will honor our parents will have long life and health. Now, I don't believe that there's some kind of a mystical magic connection between long life and loving mum and dad. I have known scoundrels who have lived long lives, and I know people who have loved their parents dearly, but who have died at a young age. That's not the promise. Guess where children learn to honor their parents? From their parents. If an adult doesn't honor their parents, then they are teaching their own children not to honor themselves. One of Grimm's fairy tales is about a little boy who lived with his father, his mother, and his elderly grandfather. The grandfather was feeble and his hands shook. And so when he ate, the silverware rattled against the plate and he often missed his mouth, and the food would then dribble onto the tablecloth. This upset the young mother because she didn't want to have to deal with all the extra mess and hassle of taking care of the old man, but he had nowhere else to live. So the young parents decided to move him away from the table into a corner where he could sit on a stool and eat from a bowl. The young mother said, "From now on, you will eat over there." And so he did, always looking at the table with the family and wanting to be with them, but having to sit alone in the corner. One day, his hands trembled more than usual, and he dropped his bowl and broke it. And the young father yelled, "If you're going to eat like a pig, you're going to eat out of a pig's trough." And so he made the old man a wooden trough and put his meal in it and told him to eat out of it. And the old man did. Not long after that, the couple came upon their 4-year-old son playing in the yard with some scraps of wood, and his father asked him what he was doing. And the little boy looked up and he smiled and he said, "I'm making a trough to feed you and Mama when I get big." The next day, the old man was back at the table eating with the family from a plate, and no one ever scolded him or mistreated him again. If we are going to truly honor our parents, there are 3 things that we must do. First, we must respect them. Paul said in Ephesians 6, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother." Children are to obey their parents, but honor or respect is more important than mere obedience. It is possible to obey without showing respect. You can do as you're told and still be rebellious in your heart. It's like the little boy who was standing on the back seat of the car riding down the road with his parents. And his parents told him to sit down and to put on his seatbelt because they were concerned about his safety. His father told him once and then twice and then a 3rd time. The mother looked back and asked him to sit down, and he defiantly said, "I will not sit down." And the father told him that if he didn't sit down, he'd give him the spanking of his life. And so the boy sat down. But then the boy's voice came up and he said, "I may be sitting down on the outside, but I'm standing up on the inside." There's obedience there, isn't there? But there's no respect. We tend to honor people whom we think deserve it or earn it. We honor great athletes with awards. We honor successful politicians with positions of authority. We honor successful people with plaques. But God says that we are to honor our parents not just because of what they have done, but simply because of who they are. Now that might be a hard pill for us to swallow, but God didn't say, honor your parents if they are honorable. Nowhere does God say that respect must be earned before you give it. God calls us to honor our parents simply because they are our parents. Nowhere in this commandment does it tell us that we are to honor them because they are great parents or even good parents. We are to honor them because of the position they hold in relation to our lives. 2, we must value their advice. Proverbs 13:1 says, "A wise man heeds his father's instruction." That's not always an easy thing to do because most of us have gone through the stage where we don't think that our parents know too much at all. I was like most teenagers. I believed that my parents didn't really understand everything, but I learned something over the years. Just because I had more education than my parents, it didn't mean that I was smarter than them. There are some things that nobody learns except by living, having experience, failing at some things, and then bouncing back. 3, let them know that you appreciate their efforts. There are some things that are just proper and right. And one of those things is showing honor to the man and the woman responsible for bringing us into this world, feeding us and taking us to the dentist, sitting with us when we were sick, doing the 1,000,001 other things that go with being a parent. And so God says, Honor your parents. It's the right thing to do. Even after children have grown up and have families of their own, they have a responsibility to honor their parents. There's a popular trend today in psychology to blame all of a person's problems on the mistakes of his or her parents. You can't help the way you are, the thinking goes. It's not your fault. It's your parents who messed you up. You're the victim. But the Bible doesn't say that parents are perfect, and nor does it say that our honoring of our parents must be based on how much we approve of the job they did with us. In this commandment, God is saying that we should make our parents feel treasured simply because they have done so very much for us. They bought and cleaned our clothes. They made sure that we got all the necessary flu shots and so on, and all the checkups that we need. They gave us a home and food. They provided us with transport, and they counseled us when we had a problem. At birth, we were solely dependent upon adults for our nurture. And the moment we came into this world, our parents kept us warm and fed us and protected us. And many years passed until we were old enough to care for ourselves. And so, of course, we should be grateful. Think of the financial burden that parents bear. It's huge. According to the Australian Institute of Family Studies, it costs at least $300,000 to raise a child from birth to 18 years old. I heard about a boy who was talking to a friend at school. He said, "I'm really worried. My dad works so hard to provide for the needs of our home, and Mom spends her days washing the clothes, preparing the meals, and keeping the house clean." And so his friend said, "So what are you worried about?" And so the boy replied, "Actually, I'm afraid they might escape." We owe our parents a huge debt of gratitude. They deserve our honor for the simple reason that they have done so much for us. I have no doubt at all that what has helped me more than anything else to honor my parents' efforts is being a parent myself, and more recently, the carer for 4 of our grandchildren. This is the hardest job I've ever had. It's difficult and it's costly, not just in terms of finances, but in terms of time and energy and emotions. If we can honor our parents for nothing else, we can honor them because they took on a difficult job. I encourage you to let your parents know that you appreciate what they've done for you. I want you to see that this command of honoring your father and mother is so special that it has a promise attached to us. And what is that promise? That your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God is giving you. And Paul quotes this command, and he says in Ephesians 6 that this is the first commandment with a promise that it may be well with you and that you may live long upon the earth. How we treat our parents not only impacts them, but it also impacts us. There is a blessing or a curse for us based on our treatment of our parents. The honor or failure to honor our parents is a choice that takes us down one of 2 roads, and the choice is ours. It is so important for us to honor our parents, and the time to do it is now. The day will come when we will not be able to show them the honor that we would like to give. Now, some of you don't have your parents with you any longer. I hope that you don't have to look back and say with regret, I never told my dad how much I loved him. Or for all of those times that I was in her house and ate her delicious cooking and receiving her unfailing love, I never once told my mother how much I loved her. If you still have your parents, but have been reluctant, embarrassed, or simply thoughtless about giving them explicit statements and expressions of your love, don't make the mistake that so many others have made by living to regret it. Spend time with them, drop them a note, or call them just to let them know that you are thinking of them. I got a wonderful text from my daughter the other day. It just kind of filled my heart with the words of encouragement that she gave to me. And one last word, a challenge really. For those of us who are parents, be honorable. Even though our honor isn't based on our worthiness, we still need to live a life that makes it easy for our children to honor us. We are to be teachers of what is good and right. We are to teach our children the values that build character and about the God who defines those values. We are to model for our children God's values and his integrity and his unconditional love. If we take our role as God's authority in the home seriously, we have reason to hope that when our children leave home, they will always choose to act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with their God. The principle at the heart of this fifth commandment then is simply this: make your family your priority. Let's pray now. Loving God, many times we call you Father, and we do so because we honor and respect you as the creator and the guide of our life. Help us to bring that same honor and respect to our parents, even if we do so only to their memory. Guide us also to be parents whose life and integrity is worthy of the respect of our children. Amen. And so here are a couple of points to consider. What is the best good memory you have of your parents? And what do you think is the best memory your children have of you? God bless you until next time when we consider the sixth commandment, that we shall not murder. Goodbye and God bless.